Good morning. Welcome to Inquisition Update. My name's Tom Fress, and I'll be your host for the next hour. You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll continue now with our reading and discussion of the book, The Global Vatican, by former United States Ambassador to the so-called Holy See, Francis Rooney. The Global Vatican, an inside look at the Catholic Church, world politics, and the extraordinary relationship between the first beast and the second beast of Revelation chapter 13. We concluded yesterday about midway down the page on page 27. We're currently in the second chapter of the book, part 4 of that chapter. We're dealing with, the relationship that's building between the first beast and the second beast. That is the Vatican and the United States government, respectively. And this fledgling nation, now harboring religious liberty, that is, religious liberty for Catholics. I mean, Protestants already had religious liberty. They occupied the country originally. This was a Protestant country, overwhelmingly Protestant. Less than 1% of the population were Roman Catholics. But the Revolutionary War provided religious liberty for Catholics. So now there's a relationship between the United States government and the so-called Holy See. And the Holy See wants to know what the new fledgling government of this country has to say regarding investiture. Investiture. Who is going to pick the bishops? Who's going to govern the priests of this now free Roman Catholic Church in the United States? It was a question that was often argued between the papacy and the kings of the Old World Order. Some of the kings, in rebellion against the Pope, wished to invest their own bishop. They wished to pick their own bishops. But the Pope said, no. I am King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and I pick the bishops. After all, you have to remember that the hierarchical structure of the Roman Catholic Church is another government. It's a complete government, with the Pope as the dictator, and the bishops, archbishops, cardinals, priests, and all are underlings under his jurisdiction. And it's essentially, they call it a shadow government, but it's not even hidden. Well, one might rightly say it's hidden in plain sight. Well, the Pope has to build this shadow government that will oversee the visible government. And the Pope wants to make sure that those in the American Roman Catholic hierarchy are in subjection to the Pope and do not have loyalties to the government. See, the Pope has to address this initially because it's the age-old problem with the Roman Catholic Church. Investiture. Who are the priests going to be loyal to? If they're picked by the government, they'll be loyal to the government. If they're picked by the Pope, they'll be loyal to the Pope. If they're picked by the government, then there's no shadow government. You see what I'm saying? They become part of the visible government. The Pope works underground. He picks the bishops. The bishops oversee and monitor the visible government and report back to the Pope. And they even help pick candidates for the visible government. We learned all this when we read the book The Vatican Billions by Averell Manhattan. So in the second full paragraph on page 27, backing up just one paragraph for continuity purposes, it says Rome did not initially embrace the concept of a semi-autonomous American Roman Catholic Church. I'll add the words Roman Catholic because that's the church he's talking about. Rome did not initially embrace the concept of a semi-autonomous American Roman Catholic Church, much less grasp the concept of America, which is a government of, by, and for the people. In the Old World Order, the Pope ruled supreme. There was no government of, by, and for the people. In Roman Catholic canon law, the people are to be governed. And the Pope is the governor, and the governor of governors. two classes, the people and the priestly class. This is the shape that America is taking. As a matter of fact, I've heard it even bantered about that the ecumenical evangeli-belly preachers, once called pastors in this country, are now regarding themselves as part of that priestly class. They're becoming more and more and more the image of their Roman mother. Once they've agreed to rejoin the Roman Catholic Church, they begin to show their likeness. And so now, in the minds, more and more, among the pastors of the once Protestant churches, there are now two classes of people in the congregation. There are the people, and then there are the priestly class in charge of the church, and they do all the preaching and teaching. And the people are to be governed. More and more, we're going to see in the evangelical churches a hierarchical structure develop. Now, Rome didn't embrace the concept of a semi-autonomous American Roman Catholic Church. I mean, the whole idea of a Catholic Church in this land governing itself is just absurd to the papacy. So you can see the dilemma taking place here. And he says much less grasp the concept of America. This strange new nation with its unnerving ideas about liberty and democracy presented a challenge to the Vatican. You better believe it was a challenge. The church's concern was evident in its efforts to appoint somebody to lead the American church. Okay? The church wants its own hierarchy in place to govern the American Roman Catholic Church. It wants it to conform to the old world order. Now, here's where we left off yesterday. In 1783, the papal nuncio to France, the same Doria Pamphili, who had supposedly procured a copy of the Declaration of Independence for Pope Pius VI, was instructed to consult with Benjamin Franklin, a Freemason, and a diabolical one at that, if you know anything about the hidden history of Benjamin Franklin. Anyway, he's buddy-buddy with John Carroll, remember? He says, Pamphili was instructed by Pope Pius VI to consult with Benjamin Franklin regarding the wishes of Congress as per normal Vatican diplomatic protocol. Okay? And it says, given the lengths to which European nations continually went to control religion within their borders, that's right, the old world order, the nations went to extraordinary lengths to control religion within their borders because the Pope was their king, and the Pope said, you must be Catholic. All right? It says the Vatican naturally assumed the United States government would expect to have a say in the matter. So says the author. And he says Franklin took Pamphili's query to Congress. The response, dated May 11th, 1784, is preserved in a folio in the archives of the Propaganda Fide section of the Vatican. Who knows how the Vatican came to possess a copy, but it must have delivered quite a shock when it arrived. Quote, here's what Congress said regarding the government of the American Roman Catholic Church. Listen carefully. Resolved that Dr. Franklin be desired to notify to the Apostolic Nuncio at Versailles that Congress will always be pleased to testify their respect to his sovereign and state, that is, the Pope's. The American Congress will be pleased to testify their respect to the Pope's sovereign and state, but that the subject of his application to Dr. Franklin, that is, investiture, being purely spiritual, it is without the jurisdiction or outside the jurisdiction and powers of Congress, who have no authority to permit or refuse it. So there's your, they tell you the wall of separation between church and state doesn't exist now. That, they want to unite church and state. But here it is. Congress, as far as it's concerned, with the government of the American Roman Catholic Church, it is outside their power to permit or refuse any say. No say in the government of the Roman Catholic Church. Now, when this news reached the Vatican, he was good to go. And he got to pick the bishops. The shadow government was born. The shadow government. You ever hear anybody on the alternative media talking about the shadow government? You ever hear anybody in the mainstream media talk about the shadow government? They never tell you who it is, do they? But they know. You bet they know. And you need to know. Okay? It's not hidden at all. As a matter of fact, it has a branch office in every neighborhood in this country. Right there on the corner, usually facing east, it's the Roman Catholic Church. Did you know the most powerful man in your political jurisdiction is the local priest or the local bishop? That's right, because he's the shadow government, and he oversees the visible government. And they appoint nominees for government, and they oversee their behavior in office. And if they defy that bishopric, if they defy that priest, well, then the Roman Catholic political machine goes grinding its gears to take you out of office. That's right. Many people say that without the support of the local Knights of Columbus, you can't get elected dog catcher. And the Freemasons are busy politically too, and they're tied up with the Jesuits. They're just an auxiliary to the Jesuits. All the secret societies swear oaths, obey their so-called master of the lodge, and do their bidding, and they don't know who they serve. And the shadow government has a lot of power. Now, Benjamin Franklin, the Freemason, duly informed Pamphili that Congress was utterly indifferent and disinterested on the subject of clergy appointments. But when Pamphili solicited his suggestion, Pamphili is asking Benjamin Franklin for a suggestion of who should lead the American Roman Catholic Church. They tell me the Pope's against Freemasonry? No, not at all. They're asking, Pamphili solicited Benjamin Franklin's suggestions for the leader for the Roman Catholic Church in America, and Franklin was not above giving private advice. He insisted that there was just one man for the job, his old friend, Father John Carroll, the Jesuit priest. The first governor of the now free American Roman Catholic Church. In the summer of 1784, John Carroll was named Superior of the Mission in the 13 United States, unquote. Care to guess what the mission is? To make America Catholic. Your Protestant church, when they go on a mission, they send missionaries. Well, certainly it's to win people to Christ, isn't it? Well, when they sent Jesuits to this country on a mission, it was to win the country to the Pope. I'm not making this up. It's common sense. The 13 colonies were a mission to the Vatican. John Carroll was the Vatican's man to make America Catholic. Now, again, and I hate to beat a dead horse to death, but I'm going to make this one glue, okay? If America was Roman Catholic from the beginning, then why in the world was there a mission, a Jesuit mission, a papal mission in the 13 colonies? America was originally Protestant. Catholics had to duck and cover. Popery was outlawed. The Protestants knew who the Antichrist was. And they knew that every Roman Catholic was a representative of Antichrist and could not be trusted. They had the whole old world order as proof of what Roman Catholicism would do if it ever got a foothold in the colonies. You didn't have to convince anybody that knew anything about history, but we don't know anything about history these days, especially this kind of history. So, the overwhelmingly Protestant colonies, 13 of them, because even Roman Catholic Maryland was under Protestant control for much of its early existence. Catholics were suppressed, even in Maryland. Now it says, in the summer of 1784, Carroll was named superior of the mission in the 13 United States. 6 years later, in 1789, the same year, coincidentally, that George Washington was elected as the first U.S. president, that is, Carroll would be approved by Pope Pius VI as Bishop of Baltimore, thereby becoming the first Catholic bishop in the United States. One of Bishop Carroll's first important acts was the creation of a new college. Listen, he's a Jesuit. The first mission of a Jesuit is to establish Jesuit universities. They have to train Jesuit minds. It's a mission, remember? They have to have priests, and they have to have Jesuits, and they have to be all informed about what that mission is. John Carroll can't do it himself, so they provided the first college in this country at Georgetown, near the banks of the Potomac River, to educate young American men who could join the priesthood and minister to the quickly growing Catholic flock in America. The quickly growing Catholic flock in America. Now, what made the Catholic flock grow so rapidly when Roman Catholicism was suppressed? Well, see, part of the Counter-Reformation Council of Trent led to an alliance between the old papal monarchies of Europe, who had lost their power because of the Protestant Reformation, together with the Pope and the Jesuits, to make America Catholic. And the only way to do that, since Protestants will never profess Catholicism, Protestants revile popery, Protestants call the Pope Antichrist and the Roman Catholic Church the synagogue of Satan, the only way in the world that they ever hoped to make America Catholic was to gain a political majority. And so the monarchs who had lost their power because of the Protestant Reformation, the popes who had lost their power because of the Protestant Reformation, decided to make America a mission, and they, through immigration, made America Catholic. Every European prison was emptied. The prisoners were put on ships to immigrate to this country. Send us your old, tired, huddled masses. And the United States gobbled them up like candy. Irish Roman Catholics flooded to this country till they were almost a majority in New York City. Still are today. It was they call it the Holy Alliance. Immigration. The doors are wide open. And who helped open those doors? Why, Rome, of course. Okay? Massive inflooding of Roman Catholics, desperate, destitute, criminal Roman Catholics from European nations. I mean, they had the financial burden of keeping all these people in prison. It was costing money. So why not give them a ticket to America? The land of opportunity, the land of Roman Catholic opportunity. Now, even as American Catholics found their footing under the guidance of John Carroll, the ground beneath the Roman Catholic Church was starting to tremble. The 18th century brought grave challenges to the papacy. Now, in 1789, the same year Carroll became bishop and Washington became president, a revolution in France threatened to topple it, that is, the Roman Catholic Church and the papacy, forever. The 1-2 punch, the Protestant Reformation, stripped the Pope of his power. The Enlightenment, or the French Revolution, was merely a revolution of irreligion. Okay? God is a farce. The Bible was destroyed in France. No one was allowed to read the Bible. They persecuted Christians. And this is where the Enlightenment, it's really the beginning of the New Age movement. You could worship any god, and they worship the goddess of reason, that man somehow, sinful, fallen, wicked man, that somehow he could reason and somehow out of his wicked mind form a utopian society, completely free of religion, not just Roman Catholicism, but religion entirely. Of course, the Jesuits were behind that too. If the world won't be Roman Catholic, they certainly won't. We won't allow. We'll start this other movement and just destroy religion altogether. And in the meantime, we'll destroy Protestantism. Remember, their goal from the very beginning was to destroy Protestantism by any means necessary. All right, the French Revolution did not appear to be aggressively anti-Catholic in the first spring days of 1789. For all the damage done by the Enlightenment, France was still a Catholic country, as it had been since King Clovis ruled in the 5th century. The French Roman Catholic clergy, honored as the First Estate, you imagine they call them the Roman Catholic priests in this country, the pedophile priests in this country, the First Estate. Special term for the French Roman Catholic priest, the First Estate. It says the French clergy, honored as the First Estate, enjoyed high regard among most French citizens. Higher clergy, members of the ancient regime, see, there's even classes within the priestly class, says higher clergy, members of the ancient regime, were against the revolution from the start, since it threatened the privileges to which they had grown accustomed. But cures, the common parish priests, that is the underclass of the priestly class, supported the revolution as an overdue corrective to the inequalities in French society. See the class warfare? That's where it comes from. All right? It says the cry of the revolution, the cry of the revolutionaries, liberty, equality, and fraternity, was a slogan they could initially embrace. That is the lower Roman Catholic clergy. Indeed, for many good French priests, the turn to republicanism, already 13 years old in America, seemed late in coming. France wants liberty, and they're going to get it. We'll be back after these messages. You're listening to Inquisition Update on First Amendment Radio.
years ahead of the dominant media. FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net. The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening. Gold and silver is tremendously undervalued. Global demand vastly exceeds mine supply by more than 60% annually. There is little in the financial world more certain than a coming explosion in the prices of gold and silver. The U.S. dollar continues to lose value and respect as the world's reserve currency. Our nation faces challenges on many fronts, and a day doesn't pass without another economist bringing forth warnings of impending economic calamity. There has never been a better time than right now to acquire physical gold and silver. Discount Gold and Silver Trading was founded on the principles of truth and honesty. We believe in providing a quality product, quality service, and most importantly, competitive pricing. We provide all forms of precious metals, including American gold, silver, platinum, and rare investment and circulated coins. Silver bars, rounds, and 90% silver bags are on hand for the silver investor. Gold self-directed IRAs are available. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, that's 1-800-375-4188.
Welcome back from the break. You're listening to the second half hour of Inquisition Update on FirstAmendmentRadio.com. If you like Inquisition Update and would like to hear it continue, please support First Amendment Radio, who sponsors the program. And if you'd like to contact me directly, please do so by email. My email address is tom@seawaves.us. That's tom@seawaves.us. And if you'd like a copy of this book, the title again is The Global Vatican. The Global Vatican. There's the bell ringer right there. The Global Vatican. You want to know who's in control of the global government, the global religion, the global economic and social systems in this world? It is the papacy, the Vatican. It's written by former U.S. Ambassador to the Holy See, Francis Rooney. You can get the book at Rowman and Littlefield. I highly recommend it. And read this book for yourself, but read it with understanding. An understanding of history, an understanding of the scriptures. This book constitutes a confession. The papacy is the governor of the world. A confession by a devout Roman Catholic who served the United States, the second beast, and helped it and the rest of the world worship the first beast, the papacy. The French Revolution is putting a strain on what little is left of the Roman Catholic old world order. And if I can find where I left off, Oh, yes. The cry of revolution, the revolutionaries, was liberty, equality, and fraternity. That was the slogan that that is, the lower class of Roman Catholic priests, could embrace. Look, they were sick and tired of the old world order. They weren't given the same advantages as the higher priestly class. See the division even in the Roman Catholic Church, the class warfare even among the priests. Look, history is replete with example after example. Whenever there's turmoil in the world, there's also turmoil in the Roman Catholic Church, and the priests are always divided. There are those who truly understand the papacy and its role in the world and support that. Then there are Roman Catholic priests, well, they'd rather just live in peace and harmony with their Protestant compatriots, and they really don't really approve of inquisitions and that sort of thing. They have sympathies for their Protestants. They consider them fellow Christians, and they have to be rooted out before the war can advance. It's usually called a blood purge, okay? When Rome is taking control, she has to, well, cull the herd, if you understand the phrase. And my understanding even is, from a call I received from a listener last night, that there are Roman Catholic priests dying in Mexico. Roman Catholic priests being killed in Roman Catholic Mexico. And some suggestion by my listener that possibly this message of Protestantism is reaching Mexico. And I said, no. Protestants don't kill. Protestants don't go around killing Roman Catholic priests. It's the other way around. The priests kill the Protestants. My guess is that if there are Roman Catholic priests dying in Mexico, it's not because of a Protestant message finally reaching Mexico. No, it's a blood purge. You see, United States and Mexico are essentially being united. The world is coming as one. There's no borders anymore. And some Roman Catholic priests really aren't fit for the Pope's New World Order, and they have to be called out. My guess is if Roman Catholic priests are really dying in Mexico, it's Rome's business, okay? Protestants don't have anything to do with that. All right, back to the book. The cry of the revolutionaries, liberty, equality, and fraternity, was a slogan they, that is, the lower Roman Catholic priests, could initially embrace. Indeed, for many good French Catholic priests, the turn to republicanism, already 13 years old in America, seemed late in coming. So there were a lot of French Roman Catholic priests who wanted liberty. You might ask, from whom? Well, the Pope. Okay? Look, the Gallican Christians of France, they were called Gallicans. They were a sect of Roman Catholics that grudgingly accepted the authority of the papacy over the Roman Catholic Church. But the Gallicans absolutely detested the Pope having any authority whatsoever in government. All right? So maybe it was these Gallicans that wanted liberty, equality, and fraternity. All right. Very quickly, though, French priests went from fanning the flames of revolution to getting caught in them. By the spring of 1790, France's revolutionary government appropriated church lands and wealth. Look, have you ever heard of a concordat? A concordat is an agreement that the so-called Holy See, that is the governing body of the Vatican, signs with the various nations of the world. And one of the almost, you can expect one article of that concordat forbids a nation ever to confiscate Roman Catholic Church land and property. Wherever there is a Roman Catholic Church, there are Roman Catholics. And Roman Catholics believe that they can buy their way to heaven through indulgences. And some of them think they can even escape, quote unquote, purgatory if they bequeath all their lands and all their belongings to the Roman Catholic Church. And if this goes on for centuries, pretty soon the Roman Catholic Church owns the whole nation. Well, when revolution comes to a nation, and the country, the people, and the government become thoroughly fed up with the Antichrist and throw off his yoke, why, they take back their land. Makes sense, doesn't it? Did you know that every piece of Roman Catholic property in this country is an asylum? That ultimately it is owned by the Pope, a sovereign, not connected or not subservient to our government. And then when he lays claim to a cathedral or a church or land and property, it's his. And even if there's a Protestant revolution in this country and we kick out the Jesuits and close down all the Roman Catholic churches, we can't take their property. And all the land that's now owned by the corporate farmers that raise corn and everything like that, we can't take that back so that it supports our state or our city or our county. That's Roman Catholic. It's sovereign property. It's an asylum. That's why it's so important that the Vatican sign concordats with foreign nations. Because before long, the Roman Catholic Church is going to own the lion's share of the land. And they don't want to give it back. Because the Pope says, I am King of kings and Lord of lords. The earth is mine and the fullness thereof. And I lay claim to the whole world. Now, people might think I'm exaggerating, but this is Roman Catholic canon law. All right, very quickly, though, French priests went from fanning the flames of revolution to getting caught in them. By the spring of 1790, France's revolutionary government appropriated church lands and wealth. So now the priests are in the same boat as the Pope. They don't have a place to change their underwear. The state confiscated the church. Okay? No more secret places to molest the little boys. That's now open to the public. Bad deal for the priests, isn't it? Maybe this French Revolution isn't so good after all, huh? It says this was partly, oh, here it is, right here. This was partly a Gallican effort. Remember I just told you about the Gallican Roman Catholics? Here it is. This was partly a Gallican effort to nationalize the church and partly an effort to fill the coffers of a bankrupt government. So here you see the care that the Gallican Roman Catholics had for their local government, their nation. They were sick and tired of the Pope meddling in governmental affairs. They grudgingly allowed him to continue to be the head of the church, but keep your hands out of government. All right? The Gallicans. Here it is, right here. And he says, that summer, the assembly tightened its control over the church, imposing a civil constitution of the clergy. All right? The government imposes upon the priests and the church a civil constitution. Never mind the Pope. He's out. Now the church is under state jurisdiction. That's what the revolution, the French Revolution, got for France. And it says, henceforth by law, the French church, that is the French Roman Catholic Church, would be entirely subject to the state. Now France was, well, the first harlot daughter. France was Roman Catholic. Remember King Clovis? I mean, it was the oldest Roman Catholic state going, next to Italy. And France overthrew the church. France basically threw the church out, took over all of her land, all of her property, and put a constitution in front of the priests, a state-written constitution, said, sign it. Sign it or quit the country. So all the priests that were loyal to the Pope had to leave town clandestinely. It says clergy would be elected rather than appointed. Okay, here's investiture, right? This is the sacred turf of the Pope. No one dare select a bishop or a priest but the Pope. And here, France, the Roman Catholic state, said clergy would be elected rather than appointed and paid wages as if they were civil servants. As for investiture, the Pope would no longer have any say in choosing the clergy. He would be informed of appointments after the fact. See, Rome fears this more than anything. All of her allies now become subjects of the state, loyal to the state, and the king of the land can rebel effectively against the Pope, and there be no loyal Roman Catholics within the state to take the side of the Pope to overthrow that government. See, that's how the beast dies, okay? That's how the Antichrist, who dies hard, nearly got his Waterloo during the French Revolution, if you'll pardon the pun. All right. By the time the revolutionary government began demanding that French clergy swear an oath of loyalty to the Constitution, they had to swear their oath of loyalty to the Constitution. That is, they had to swear loyalty to the state, not the Pope. He says, by the time the revolutionary government began demanding that French clergy swear an oath of loyalty to the Constitution, most curés, that is, the lower class of priests, had grown disenchanted with the revolution. Only a third swore the oath. Of the non-juring clergy, that is, those who would not sign the oath, many fled the country, while others were deported to French Guiana. Okay? Going to do some hard time on the island. That's what happens when a state rebels against the Pope. The priests become enemy number one. Every one of them are considered to be loyal to the Pope until proven otherwise. Now, the United States is full of priests. I mean, you read about them in the paper. You see them in the mainstream media. You see them on all your Protestant Christian broadcasts. They're right on stage, considered to be equal. But when the revolution starts, the priests are enemy number one because they're loyal to the Pope. Okay. Some remained in France to keep ministering, albeit covertly and at great risk to their freedom and their lives. Prison followed by execution was often their fate. You know, the Roman Catholic Church likes to brag about her martyrs. Her martyrs never sang hymns while they burned in a flame. No, their martyrs died rebelling against governments that were rebelling against the Pope. That's why they call it popery, Pope worship, popery. Now, as the new rules went into effect in France, the Pope was caught between silent acquiescence and useless rebukes. Okay? The Pope, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, right? According to the Roman Catholic canon law, he's King of Kings and Lord of Lords. He's Lord over heaven and earth and purgatory. The triple crown, the vicar or replacement of Christ on the earth. The earth is mine and the fullness thereof. Well, the Pope, this self-styled Christ on earth, is now caught between silent acquiescence and useless rebukes. Can anybody see the mortal wound out of the Bible being inflicted here? When the Pope had power, he just thundered and everybody obeyed. Papal thunder, they called it. Now he's reduced to silent acquiescence and useless rebukes. He could say nothing and watch the French church slip from the fold of Roman Catholicism, or he could object strenuously and risk worse. Total schism, annexation of papal lands in Avignon, which did eventually occur, or even the total suppression of Catholicism in France, which did occur in England in the 16th century. Okay, the Pope has lost all of his bargaining power. Nobody's afraid of excommunication and eternal damnation anymore. How is that? You may not know what enlightenment means, but in some respects, enlightenment was very healthy for France. Now, when the Pope privately condemned the Constitution in a letter to Louis XVI, still 3 years from losing his head, but already stripped of real power, the king tried to negotiate with the Pope to save the French Church. Under the circumstances, this was little more than a pathetic demonstration of how drastically both, that is, the king and the Pope, how both of their stations had fallen. The papacy and the kings over which he ruled had both lost their station because of a 1-2 punch: Protestantism and the Enlightenment. For all intents and purposes, it appeared to the world that the papacy was dead. And we haven't even talked about the suppression of the Jesuits. The warrior of warriors, the Sun Tzu warriors of the Roman Catholic Church, those assigned to make the world Catholic, they were suppressed. But look what's going on across the pond, in the wilderness, in the New World. Roman Catholicism is free to grow and prosper and then eventually restore the Pope to all that he lost at the Protestant Reformation and the Revolution. You know, I had one recent acquaintance seem to comprehend this, the first beast and the second beast of Revelation chapter 13. And then all of a sudden, for some reason, backed away from that. I had to disfellowship with him. There's no way to understand history or to understand your Bible if you are unwilling, so patriotic, and you are unwilling to admit what ought to be obvious. As painful as it is, as life-changing as it is, we must acknowledge the role that the United States is playing in Bible prophecy. And if we're unwilling to accept the biblical, historical, and prophetic truth about the United States, then we're going to be caught up in one of Rome's many deceptions. Revelation chapter 13, read it over and over until you understand it. And the first step in understanding Revelation chapter 13 is positively identifying in your heart and in your mind who the sea beast is and who the wilderness beast is. It's explained in history. John foresaw it. John prophesied about it, wrote it in a book called The Revelation. The Revelation of Jesus Christ. And history confirms every word of it. You don't need to look to the future for a fulfillment. It's here and now. Now, under the circumstances, says the author, this was little more than a pathetic demonstration of how drastically both, that is the Pope and the King, that both of their stations had fallen. The King and the Pope could negotiate all they wanted, but the revolution made them irrelevant. Irrelevant. Louis XVI's demise in January of 1793 only added more blood to destruction in France. The Catholic religion was condemned as a cult and driven underground in France. Churches and cathedrals were vandalized and shuttered. The doors were shut, and they were converted, like Notre Dame in Paris, into temples of reason. The Freemasons took them over. Irreligion, direct Satan worship, took them over. Now, those priests who remained were pressed to marry in defiance of their vows. You know, you want to destroy the Roman Catholic Church, force those priests to marry. Then their loyalties go from the Pope to their wife and to their spouse and their children. That was the very reason the Roman Catholic Church forbid the priest to marry in the first place. That doctrine of demons was because the Pope didn't want the priest to be loyal to their families. The Pope wanted the priest to be wedded to him. Okay? So France made the priests get married. And he said, you talk about an attack on the very foundation of the Roman Catholic Church. France did it. And it says those priests who remained were pressed to marry in defiance of their vows. When an envoy was dispatched to the Vatican in the winter of 1793, his instructions made clear how little regard the secular government of France had left for the Pope. Quote, as the supreme head of a religion, he has become a stranger to us. We no longer have a clergy. In the ministers of the various cults, we recognize only citizens. They even destroyed the priestly class. They were just regarded as citizens like everybody else. Pope Pius VI refused to meet the envoy. See, Antichrist dies hard. Now, the terror soon sputtered out in France, but the worst was yet to come for the Pope. The final insult was delivered by the little general from Corsica, Napoleon Bonaparte, just launching a military career that would soon make him the dictator of France and conqueror of Europe. In 1796, Bonaparte invaded Milan, from which he announced his intention to advance south and take Rome. Here comes the sword. Here comes the sword to the house of Antichrist. What will history hold when Christ returns? The true Christ. The King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. The true King of Kings and Lord of Lords. The sword is coming. Rome has lived by the sword, and she will die by the sword. We'll be back tomorrow on Inquisition Update. Don't miss it.